Good evening, everybody. Gives me great pleasure to be here. I was a passionate cricketer. Cricket was an integral part of my life, I would say. Aspiring to play for the country. Got my school admission, changed my school for cricket, for playing cricket. Got into Santa Maria School because of my cricket. Got into Vivekananda College because of my cricket. And also was forced to get into a job, into a banking job. Safety and security over passion. So when I joined the team, I was immersed into playing cricket. So I kept on playing even though there was no opportunity for me to play representative cricket. I'd crossed the age and missed the bus. All because my well-wishers, my people around me thought that safety first, though I wanted to chase my passion. So I kept on playing, and by the end of the cricketing days, I stopped playing cricket. It kind of hit me as to what I was doing with my career. So I wanted a change. I thought I would equip myself for that. So I went and joined an e-commerce course with IBM. Initially did it part-time, but felt I couldn't concentrate, then took a sabbatic leave and joined full-time. Then a mini U-turn happened in my life. One of my neighbor, he was starting a payment gateway, and he said, "Ramki, you don't fit in a bill as a banker, why don't you join us?" So at 34, married with 2 kids, I quit the public sector and went into a private sector. My family was a bit nervous. I had to convince my father-in-law, my parents, everybody. But I made it very clear to them that I had already listened to them and went by their wishes of safety first, and now I was going to decide by myself. So I was very keen on a change. I was bored with being as a banker, so I wanted to change, and I joined this company. And I was in for a shock. In 2000, that's when the dot-com bubble burst. The company shelved its plans of a payment gateway and started restructuring its plans. And there were a few layoffs as well. So my inner voice told me that I should chase my passion. So I went about doing that and got into sports and tried to convert sports and technology. So in the year 2000, I was also coaching a school, Balavidya Mandir in Adyar. And I had used a video camera which was bought by my father. The first day it was launched in Singapore, he bought it for me, and I took it to the ground to film me as a cricketer, playing in my nets. I also used it in the coaching. I always believed in video as a coaching aid, as a learning tool. The retention level is higher, the recall ratio is much higher. So there were a lot of excitement among the kids as well. They were able to understand what I was saying, so there was tremendous results which we got out of that exercise. So when I went about convincing people, I said, why not a software for coaching, and if not, we will develop one. And we introduced a video-based motion analysis system in the year 2000. Initially I was trying to sell the software, and I was in for a shock. The market was not ready. The coaches were insecure, and there was this usual resistance to change. Everybody said that all this is not needed, you're making the game complicated, the naked eye is more than enough. A lot of people questioned the decision, but being a pioneer, you're always questioned. You're out there alone. But I was convinced that video can play a pivotal role, multimedia can play a pivotal role in sports coaching. And I started providing services. I had to keep the cash flows going. I didn't have money to buy a laptop earlier. My company told me that if you want to buy a laptop, you have to sell some 10 licenses of the software. So I carried a desktop around to every ground, just literally to educate and create awareness amongst the coaches. And the coaches never even looked at it. Literally had to beg them to even look at it, not to buy it. So nothing happened. I had to keep the cash flows going, so started providing services, and that really picked up. I started working with the MRF PACE Foundation with Dennis Lilly. Then the National Cricket Academy happened, the Bobby Simpson's Compline Academy in Bombay happened. Soon we were working with all the top coaches in the world, top academies in the world. I have analyzed about 10,000 cricketers in the company of all the top coaches in the world. And soon the word spreads around. John Wright heard about me and he called me to the National Cricket Academy. So he wanted to make me do a presentation for the coaches there. All the top coaches were there. Roger Binney, Prasanna, Kiran More, all the top cricketers were there. And the topic was visual-based coaching. It was supposed to be a 45-minute session, but carried on for the entire day. At the end of the day, John Wright came and asked me, Ramki, do you want to join the team? So he gave me a huge opportunity. Initially I was shocked. Here was an offer. He said, Ramki, do you want to join the team? The money is not great, but. I replied back saying, no Indian would refuse that offer. In 2003, the New Zealand series, Mohali, I made the debut along with L. Balaji, state cricketer. So we went on, and first the New Zealand series, I took some time to settle down. We had a short series, then we were going to Australia, 2003-2004 Australia series. So I discussed with Rahul Dravid, got into the preparation of things. So I asked Rahul, what kind of team meetings do you have? And the reply he gave me was very shocking. He said, Ramki, we all used to assemble in the coach's room. They used to order French fries, samosas, all that which is banned today, of course. And in the last 5 minutes, they'll say, tomorrow's an important game, they'll say Kelo. That was what team meeting was all about with the Indian cricket team at the national level. So we decided to restructure it, change the whole thing, as is my strength, wanted to make it more visual. So asked Saurav, do you have any information about the Australians? And the reply was in the negative. They said, Ramki, nobody has been collecting information for the team. And I told him that if you can help me get the tapes of the Ashes series before the tour, I can gather some information and we can analyze those videos. So we landed in Australia, and Saurav Ganguly came with 25 tapes from ESPN. Once I landed in Australia, I never saw the outside world. I was locked in the hotel room, trying to digitize those 25 tapes, trying to extract information and extract intelligence out of it. This process happened, and the team meeting was made more informative, more visual in nature, and the output was fantastic. The team enjoyed it. I always say 25% goes into preparation, 25% into how well it is internalized into your subconscious mind, and 50% goes into execution. But how well you execute depends on the first two blocks. So with that success, we had instant success, and we won after a long gap. We won a test match in Australia. So we won the Melbourne match. No, we won the Adelaide match, and then in Sydney we fumbled. We got a great chance to win the series, but we fumbled. But the team was very happy. It gave me a lot of confidence. I felt the need for having an organization behind me. We are shifting slowly, moving on from video analysis to performance analysis, and we're getting into sports analytics. So we introduced that, and we started in 2006. After all these successful tours, the reaction of the team changed. They respect us, they respect our contribution today, and ever since we've added the analytics component, success came by much faster. The data part of it was more for the coaching staff, and the players were comfortable with the videos. So we used the data to establish the trends and patterns and then authenticate with the videos. So every player, before every game, the strengths and weaknesses of each of the player is discussed threadbare, backed with all the information. It used to be discussed earlier informally. So it's very, very important to collect the information, analyze the data, and extract the intelligence and produce actionable insights for the team. The attention span of the players are very, very short. We used to have very short meetings, 20 minutes. And within that 20 minutes, we had to convey all the messages of the coach, bring alive the message of the coach, help them register in the subconscious mind. So very quickly we became market leaders, and Sports Mechanics was born in 2006. And we had all the brains. And when Sports Mechanics started, our aim was the first generation organization. Provide employment opportunities to, it started off in my bedroom, to employment opportunities. I'm a classic case study. And then we progressed to a garage who chased the passion and believed in, with 3 people there. We had 4 people, 4 of us. We are sitting on the floor and working in a garage. Convinced a lot of other people to join. We moved on to initially when I started Sports Mechanics, I had to go and we started working, saying sports is an alternative career. The big break, but nobody would conceptualize and implemented the umpires evaluation project. Difficulty in attracting talent. But after that, after some time, all these changed, and suddenly we had people from Infosys, Microsoft, Yahoo, and all wanting to come and join us. So we developed a good team. We are now about 45 of us, and going from strength to strength, but the intention was to grow an organization. Along the way, we had a lot of innovations. We were the first to introduce sports analytics. We also developed the world's first predictive engine. It's a real-time decision support system which helped the team construct their innings in a structured manner. We also got into performance efficiency and player valuation. We were at the IPL auction, and we found that $90 million was spent based on pure gut feel. So we decided that we can apply our analytics layer on that, make the decisions much more logical. And the last 6 years of IPL, 5 years, all our clients have been the champions. So the transformation from video-based coaching, a video analyst to a performance analyst to a performance manager. Today, not many people know what we are doing. Like we were introduced that there was somebody always with a laptop. So I'm always connected with the laptop. So people say when somebody introducing you, you would have seen this man? You would have seen his face on the TV? He would have been sitting next to Sehwag with a laptop. So I'm always connected to that, but not many people know what we are doing. But fortunately, after the Moneyball movie was launched, A lot of IPL franchisees came to understand our concept. So it has become much, much easier than before, but still 99% of the coaching is done with naked eye, even today, even at the elite level. So after cricket, we thought we should replicate, we cut down our dependency on cricket, move into other sports as well. So have been trying with the Sports Authority of India ever since 2001. And 2012 Olympics, 6 months before the Olympics, they gave us an opportunity to work with the Indian hockey team, men's team. And immediately, the coach is an Australian coach. So he was able to immediately connect with what we are doing, and we entered hockey, and fortunately for us, the team qualified for the Olympics after a long time. So immediately the Sports Authority asked us to work with the Weightlifting Federation, Boxing Federation, Athletics Federation, Table Tennis Federation. We have more dreams in the pipeline. A lot of times as an entrepreneur, you run out of ideas. But we are fortunate, we still have a lot more ideas. We are developing the body area network, where after extracting intelligence from videos, we go on to the next stage of extracting information from biological sensors. Who knows, in an IPL in a year's time, probably a neuro will be deciding the batting order. By placing an EEG sensor inside the helmet, you study the brainwave patterns, and whoever is in a positive frame of mind can go on into bat. Can happen 1 year later. You also want to identify talent using scientific methods. And the last one, it's very close to my heart. I always believe that anything we do should have an impact on the society. Right to play. So I've requested Sachin Tendulkar as a parliamentarian to take up the issue of right to play. Today the government provides kids with food, asks them to come and study, they run away. Instead, if the government asks them to come and play, create state-of-the-art infrastructure in schools, which are a major attraction for kids to come and play, provide them with food, and top it up with education. So for RTE to happen, right to educate to happen, right to play is a prerequisite. So I would like to summarize a lot of youngsters here, and you've been listening to a lot of messages right from morning. But from my side, I would like to say that chase your passion, but also back yourself up. It's very important to back yourself up, because when you're chasing your passion, there will be a lot of people trying to dissuade you from taking a path that you want to chart out. I took the path, but none in my family thought that I can make it big. They all stopped me. I'm sure all the 40 of us, there are 45 people in my organization today. And the 45 are different. They have the guts to come out of the mainstream and chase their passion. So if you have that kind of belief in yourself and your abilities, I think there is only one way to grow. Thank you all.